Hello, welcome to the Weird Record Club, the place where we explore the albums that are forgotten by other channels, the weird, the wonderful, the novelty, the comedy, the psychedelic, the downright odd. Well, rock and pop music has always had its fair share of bands that had siblings in them. Of course, you got the Beach Boys and the Kinks and the Bee Gees, not to mention those Mancunian Pillocks. But today we're going to be looking at Leeds' finest, the Grumbleweeds. That's Maurice, Graham, Robin, Albert and Carl. So two of those were brothers. Now, if you're of a certain age, you may remember the Grumbleweeds being on radio and TV variety shows. And as a very early teens, I remember being tucked up in bed under the covers with a tranny, listening to the Grumbleweeds radio show. Tranny means a transistor radio, if just to avoid any doubt. Anyway, Grumbleweeds Leeds variety act. They did comedy sketches, they did character sketches, they did sort of pastiches of Mick Jagger and Roy Orbison and Elvis. And you might remember what were their catchphrases? There's one was "What have I got in my pocket," which is the title of their MFP album of sketches and songs. And what was their other one? "You're getting right up my nose, you are, pal." That was the other one, wasn't it? I've found a couple of their comedy records here and there in charity shops. They're very cheap. But what we're looking at today is their psychedelic record. A few years ago, a compilation called The Electric Asylum featured a song called "In a Technicolor Dream" by the Grumbleweeds, and that sort of led to rumours that they had a lost psychedelic album from 1972. And for a while, when this turned up on eBay or Discogs, it was going for silly figures, for over £100. Well, I had to track it down, and here it is. Mine was much, much cheaper. It was £10 or £15, I think, from eBay. So here is the Grumbleweeds' famed psychedelic album, "In a Technicolor Dream." You can see that they went to the same spelling school as Slade. Let me get the back cover as well. I'll tell you something about the sleeve notes later, but that's what we're going to look at today. Really interesting. Now, I also found in a charity shop quite recently, there we go, Maurice Grumbleweeds' autobiography, which it doesn't actually mention this album at all. There it is. It's signed "To David and Barbara with Love." Presumably this was from a cruise. I'll show you a couple of pictures of the band. There they are. And there they are, looking a bit more mid-60s, I would guess, in that bottom one. And let me turn over the page. There's a couple more of the boys looking smart in the bottom one for the cabaret circuit. So anyway, let's get back to "In a Technicolor Dream." Well, just wait a second while... Whoops. Get off. Sorry, that was Ozzy just climbing up my trouser leg. Are you going to sit quietly, Ozzy? All right, you're going to sleep on my lap. Get comfortable. Let me show you. Oops, there he is. Yep, that's his box behind. Right, stop distracting me, Ozzy. So, the key track is the title track, "In a Technicolor Dream," the one that appeared on the compilations, and that's a really heavy psychedelic. With lots of fuzz guitar and screaming vocals. Now, there's a scream on it that was so loud, according to the sleeve notes of the album, that Maurice, who did the scream, collapsed and lost consciousness after doing it. So that's "In a Technicolor Dream," and that is the highlight of the album, definitely. And you can pick that up as a single, or you can pick it up on that compilation. So that's the best song. That some of the other songs also have a kind of psychedelic feel to them. None as heavy or as tough as "In a Technicolor Dream." which features lyrics like purple darts blowing your mind and all that kind of good stuff. There's a cover of Leon Russell's Stranger in a Strange Land, which opens side one of the album, which is pretty good. There's a fairly lackluster version of George Harrison's My Sweet Lord. Well, if you ever wanted to hear the Grumbleweeds singing Hare Krishna, now's your chance, but that's probably a weak spot on the album. But there is some other songs that have a gospel-y or a Beatles, Bee Gees-ish 60s flavour to them. I mean, this was released in 1972, so the 1960s came late to West Yorkshire. I think that's something that we can say. Now, I think the worst song on there by a long way is called So Sweet Netta. When she's good, she's very good, but when she's bad, she's better. Now, you get a song of these saucy innuendos, and then it turns out at the end, of course, Netta's only 3 years old or something like that. It's one of those 70s songs, a bit like, what was the Brotherhood of Man? One Save Your Kisses for Me, where, you know, the object of his affection turns out to be a toddler. And, of course, Memphis, Tennessee as well, the Chuck Berry song, where the same thing happens. What is it with these guys? Well, I'm getting distracted now, but even worse one was the Brotherhood of Man did a follow-up single where the love song turns out in the last line to be sung to a dog. Anyway, So Sweet Netta, when she's good, she's very good, but when she's bad, she's better. That is, and it finishes with sort of baby noises and things. So that's probably a low point. The rest of the album is, you know, it's not a 5-star album, probably not even a 4-star album, maybe a 3-star album. Some really good songs. It's interesting to hear the Grumbleweeds start to get spiritual and talking about questioning and looking for meaning, and that some of the songs have a kind of philosophical or spiritual existential searching aspect, and very unlike, you know, the "What have I got in my pocket" and "You're getting right up my nose, you are, pal" sketch stuff. So in that sense, it's really really interesting. But the key song, I think, is their finest moment, in a Technicolor Dream, a great slab of very late psychedelia. Now, I should say the album's got some orchestration on it that was done by Alan Hawkshaw, and you will have heard some of Hawkshaw's work. He was a Leeds composer. He played for a little while with Bowie and with the Shadows, but perhaps he's most famous for, if you're my age, you might remember seeing Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. He did the music for that. He also wrote the tune for Grange Hill, and he even wrote the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-boo for Countdown. He composed that. So all of that on one interesting album. That is the Grumbleweeds Psychedelic album. I mean, it's a great cover. Look at that with the sort of polka dot hills and pink and purple sky with that little, maybe that's So Sweet Netta there popping up out of the green spotty hill, and there are the Grumbleweeds there plodding off into the psychedelic distance. So it's an interesting find, and it's worth picking up if you could pay a few quid for it. So, I mean, it's quite interesting to think about comedy bands like the Grumbleweeds who sort of flirted with pop and psychedelia and tried to be taken more seriously. Another example will be the Barron Knights, who released a couple of psychedelic songs in the late 60s and early 70s, and I'm sure we're going to be exploring some of those as we get onto it. So, there we have it, the Grumbleweeds go psychedelic. Well worth checking out in a Technicolor Dream on YouTube. That's easy to find. Remember to spell it wrong, though. So that just leaves us with the burning question: what have I got in my pocket?